Alrighty, so greetings, nerdlings, and welcome back to That Nerd Mama Life. Today, we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Is it a crit hit or a crit miss? But before we get to that, today is National Take a Chance Day. And the reason why I picked that one for today is because if it were not for a chance meeting between D&D founders Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson at the second annual Gen Con, we would not even have D&D. And this year happens to be the 45th anniversary of D&D when it was first released. Fast forward to now, our nerd news is there's an unofficial adventure from the archives for D&D called Down the Hole, being designed for beginners. It's being released as a 5th edition D&D adventure for 3 to 6 players of 1st or 2nd level. So if you've got a group that is looking to get into D&D, you can head over to dmsguild.com and you can download the PDF for Down the Hole for $2.95. So like I said, if you've got somebody who's interested, you're already an existing player, and you have people who want to join in your game but don't know what the ins and outs are, and you're more advanced so you kind of forgot how to play it down for lower level people, this might be a good trick for you. We actually just had here in town, a local man is starting an Adventures Guild for young kids for the summer. And so I sent him the link to this. That way he could hopefully incorporate that into his games to teach kids how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Now, today's topic. I live in Arkansas, which for all of you outside of here would recognize that as one of the southern states that's incorporated in what is called the Bible Belt. And Dungeons and Dragons is a topic of much controversy down here, simply because of the stereotypes and stigmas surrounding it. The guy who's starting the Adventurers Guild here in town actually faced quite a bit of opposition from churchgoers, stating that we didn't need that kind of thing here. You know, you're teaching our kids about Satan. So my thing is, are these people fans of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, any fantasy fiction type genre that exists in pop culture today? And if they do, and they oppose Dungeons and Dragons, I would love to know why. Because Dungeons and Dragons is honestly no different than Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. There are many different versions of Dungeons and Dragons. There's ones that's set in more of a Lord of the Rings setting. There's adventures that are more futuristic. There's versions that focus on like vampire lore. I learned how to play on 2nd edition before it started getting a lot more complicated, and I did not understand the reason behind that, but whatever. That's a whole other topic altogether. And for me, as a gamer, and this is my personal experience of Dungeons and Dragons, is that it gave me a chance to exercise my creativity, because it allowed me to play a character, play a role, and that's why it's called role-playing. It's no different than if you were to be part of an acting troupe. It really isn't. You create a character and you create a backstory for your character. You're a certain type of character, whereas like in the movies you would be the leading man or the leading woman, or you'd be the supportive best friend, or you'd, be the nurse in the ER. There's really no big difference to me between what we watch in pop culture and what happens during a Dungeons and Dragons adventure game. It allowed me to express not only my creativity, but my acting ability, my team building skills, my mathematics to a certain extent because of what goes into how you play inside a battle. There's a number system and mathematics involved in that. It was a great way for me to be social with people that I normally wouldn't be social with, because all types of people play Dungeons and Dragons. There's no set persona or personality type that plays Dungeons and Dragons. I've played with goth people, I've played with nerds, I've played with skaters, I've played with jocks. There's no one stereotype of person who plays Dungeons and Dragons. And I touched on this a little bit in a previous video, but another thing is, I don't see anything wrong with teaching our children Dungeons and Dragons, because it's, for a small town like ours, there's so little for kids to do around here. I mean, honestly, I live in small town America where we have one major movie theater, we have one bowling alley, we have one, public swimming pool. There's really nothing beyond that. And so when somebody says, hey, let's give the kids something else to do, I'm all on board for that. I'm all on board for teaching our children skills in a fun way. It's teaching kids to get outside of their box, to think outside their normal realms, and they're having fun doing it. Now, I can see the other side of this issue. I grew up going to church all the time, and a lot of people who had made statements against Dungeons and Dragons, they did make some good points. But mostly when it came to not just like the tabletop gaming, but the live action role playing stuff, that stuff has been known to get out of hand. There's plenty of news articles that you can find out on the internet of gamers who have taken it too far. And it being perceived that all role players participate in that. And they don't. I've never live action role played. I don't have any desire to. I am a sit on my butt and use my brain kind of person. I always have been. I've never been an outdoors person. So live action role playing for me personally was never on the table, on the tabletop for me. I can understand where some people would consider it to be a little on the border of the gray area. I guess it's a gray area. Because I've had discussions with Christians who have, given me feedback as to what they feel Dungeons and Dragons represents. And it really, all of their arguments, I did have something to come back with, except for what happens when it's taken too far. I don't condone that kind of thing. I don't condone anything that brings something positive into a negative light. Dungeons and Dragons can be a positive thing, just like anything else, any other creative realm, unless you take it to a dark place. Just like anything else. Sports players get unsportsmanlike conduct. People get arrested for, not peacefully protesting. There's always a way to take something positive and turn it into a negative. And it's up to people like me to try and counterbalance that negativity. And I'm all about positivity. I'm all about not allowing something that I love to be portrayed in a negative light. I love D&D. In fact, my favorite character to play ever, one of my DMs allowed me to play a dragon fairy thief. And that was the funnest character I think I've ever had. Because if you look in the monster manuals for D&D, dragon fairies are literally this big with butterfly wings, and they're very hyper. And so putting that with a thief character created some very funny moments, a lot of laughing at my expense. And that's what parents and people in general should see more of from Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion. Now, let me just say, the movie, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, epic fail in my opinion. Mostly because I think they went too far into trying to steer away from the stereotype that they made it seem gimmicky. Now, if any of you have seen the sequel to that would be more what I would consider Dungeons and Dragons. It's more true to what a typical adventure game would look like. It's not so far into the absurd. If you have a chance to find it, I'm pretty sure you could probably find it somewhere on the internet. But I actually enjoyed the second one more than I enjoyed the first one. That was, the critically acclaimed one. It's hard to convince people that something is positive when they are so dead set that it's negative. But if you are a role player and you know people in your life that don't get it or don't condone it or think, stereotypes about stuff, by all means, create a dialogue. That's how change happens. We have to create a dialogue. I encourage my daughter to pursue things that are creative, Dungeons and Dragons being one of them. I just haven't happened to get a hold of the books yet because, like I said earlier, I'm a second ed, first and second ed pure fan. Once it got into the later editions, I kind of lost me and got a little bit too more complicated than what it needed to be. But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions, or even just share your stories. If you've ever played D&D, what was one of your favorite characters? What was one of your favorite adventures? What don't you like about it? What do you think could be done to maybe break the stereotypes and the stigmas surrounding Dungeons and Dragons? Leave your thoughts in your comments. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bells. Otherwise, Facebook and YouTube not so great at giving out notifications unless you do all the work. So make sure to hit that. It should be there somewhere around here per se on the video. Make sure you're hitting that notification bell. I want you to know when I'm going to be here. As always, guys, I love you. Stay nerdy, and I'll see you tomorrow.